The air hung heavy with the low hum of engines and distant car doors slamming. Tires crunched on asphalt as vehicles pulled in and out of tight parking spots. A steady stream of people flowed across the lot, heads down, shoulders hunched, rushing towards the bright fluorescent lights of the supermarket. Chatter and the muffled beats of car radios blended into a dull background drone. No one looked down. No one paused. Each person was a singular unit, focused solely on the task at hand, oblivious to anything beyond their own immediate path. Tucked away from the main thoroughfare, nestled deep within a shallow, overgrown ditch, something barely stirred. Discarded plastic bags and a few crushed cans lay scattered, partially concealing a small, still form. A tiny body, shivering almost imperceptibly, was matted with grime and bits of dry leaves. A dark, wet stain bloomed on its side, a stark contrast against its dull fur. Wide, terrified eyes, clouded with pain, darted back and forth, desperate, pleading. A faint, almost lost whimper, more a shuddering breath than a sound, escaped its throat. It was a sound easily swallowed by the noise of the parking lot, by the indifference of 1,000 hurried footsteps. This creature had been there, unmoving, for what felt like an eternity. A silent, suffering plea echoing in a void of inattention. Then, an older sedan, its paint faded but its body well cared for, glided into a space near the edge of the lot. Thomas, a man whose spine held a quiet military stiffness even in his 70s, stepped out. He moved with a deliberate, unhurried grace, his gaze not fixed on the store entrance like everyone else, but sweeping slowly across his surroundings. His eyes, though lined with age, possessed a startling sharpness. He wasn't searching for anything specific, just observing, a habit ingrained from years of scanning horizons. A subtle, almost imperceptible sound, barely a whisper, snagged his attention. His step faltered. He stopped, tilting his head, listening intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. Unlike the throngs around him, he wasn't deaf to the faint signals of distress. Thomas began to move towards the sound, his walk calm and measured. He reached the edge of the ditch and slowly knelt down, his movements perhaps a touch stiff, but steady. His eyes found the small, suffering form. A soft, sympathetic rumble escaped his throat, a quiet sound meant only for the terrified animal. He saw the gaping wound, the trembling, the sheer vulnerability. There was no hesitation. His weathered hand, calloused from a lifetime of purpose, reached out, moving with a gentle slowness designed to soothe, not alarm. The urgency was internal, a quiet command within him to offer aid. He saw not just a stray, but a wounded soul in desperate need, and his instinct to help was immediate, overriding everything else. A jacket, worn blue and smelling faintly of old spice and fresh air, carefully wrapped the trembling creature. The makeshift bundle, surprisingly light yet heavy with urgency, was carried through the automatic doors of the brightly lit supermarket. The air inside hummed with the cheerful beeps of scanners and the murmur of conversations, a stark contrast to the quiet desperation in Thomas's arms. He moved towards the customer service counter, his footsteps steady, his voice calm, but with an unmistakable edge of purpose. "I need help. This puppy's dying. Do you have a first aid kit? A clean towel? Something sterile?" The manager, a man in a crisp shirt with a name tag reading Stephen, barely lifted his gaze from a computer screen. A dismissive snort escaped him. "We don't do vet work here, old man." This isn't an animal hospital. Nearby, a young stock boy stacking cans chuckled, not even looking up. "That thing's basically roadkill with a heartbeat. Why bother?" A woman in line, scrolling on her phone, scoffed loudly. "People care more about animals than people these days. It's ridiculous." Stephen rolled his eyes, gesturing vaguely towards the exit. "Just toss it back where you found it. Let nature finish the job. Circle of life and all that." A few uncomfortable giggles rippled through the line. A teenager pulled out his phone, starting to film, whispering to a friend. The automatic doors hummed shut behind Thomas as he turned and walked out, the sound of their laughter a faint, cutting echo. Outside, the sun beat down, warming the asphalt. Thomas settled on the concrete curb, the puppy's small body trembling against his own. A dark stain began to spread on the sleeve of his jacket. Cars continued to drive past, some slowing momentarily, drivers glancing with mild curiosity before accelerating away. No one stopped. His old flip phone yielded no answers. The local animal shelter was closed until Monday. The veterinary clinic across town's recorded message explained weekend hours had ended at noon. Every avenue for immediate professional help was a dead end. He carefully examined the puppy's wound in the harsh sunlight. A deep gash, likely from broken glass or metal, demanded cleaning and stitches. The tiny creature's temperature was dropping, its shivering intensifying, clear signs of shock setting in. He had seen this progression too many times before. A man in an expensive suit walked by, briefcase in hand, muttering, "Should have let nature take its course. Waste of time and energy at your age." Minutes later, a middle-aged woman approached tentatively, offering a plastic bottle of water for the dog, adding apologetically, "I wish I could do more, but I've got 3 kids waiting in the car." He tore a strip from his own undershirt, creating a cleaner bandage, pressing it against the puppy's wound with methodical precision. His arthritic fingers worked with a memory that outlasted pain, a silent testament to decades of field medicine. "Just let it go, man. It's not your job to save every stray in the county." A young man shrugged, walking past with shopping bags. "Maybe not," Thomas whispered, not looking up. "But I've never walked away from the wounded. Not in Saigon, not in Baghdad, not here." The puppy's whimpers grew less frequent, less forceful, not a good sign. Energy conservation preceded system failure. He closed his eyes briefly, whispering a prayer learned decades ago in a field hospital, surrounded by the dying. A voice cut through the quiet despair, curious and slightly surprised. "Is that a soldier's field wrap? That compression technique?" Thomas looked up, blinking against the bright sun, to see a young man kneeling beside him. He wore military fatigues, his eyes studying the precise bandaging with a knowing intensity. "Sir, are you a medic?" the young man asked, his gaze respectful. "Used to be. 47th MASH, then 2nd Marines Forward Surgical," Thomas replied, the old titles feeling strange on his tongue after so many years. The soldier's face transformed with sudden recognition, a flicker of deep respect in his eyes. "Hang on, sir. I'm calling someone who will care about both of you." He stood quickly, pulling out a phone, jogging away, his voice urgent. 5 minutes later, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows glided smoothly into the parking lot. The logo on the driver's door read, "Veterans Rescue Network." 2 figures emerged, moving with the coordinated efficiency of those accustomed to emergencies. One, a woman with close-cropped gray hair, and the other, a younger man with a prosthetic leg, approached Thomas, medical kit already in hand. "May I?" the woman asked, her voice carrying the gentle authority of someone who had seen worse, yet never grown callous. She gestured towards the puppy. Thomas carefully transferred the trembling bundle. The woman examined the makeshift bandage, her experienced eyes noting the precise pressure points and anatomical considerations. Whoever did this compression wrap knew exactly what they were doing. Textbook field stabilization. The young soldier returned, slightly out of breath. "This man is a former Army medic. 3 tours in Vietnam, then Desert Storm. Probably treated more men in battlefield conditions than most doctors see in a lifetime." The second volunteer nodded respectfully. "Sir, we're taking both of you in now. The puppy to our partner veterinary clinic, and you for a proper meal and some rest. You've been out here for hours." Thomas hesitated, his ingrained self-sufficiency making him reluctant. "I'm fine. The pup is what matters." The gray-haired woman smiled knowingly. "And that's exactly what heroes always say. But today, you're both getting care, non-negotiable, medic." They carefully loaded the puppy into a specialized transport crate in the back of the SUV, equipped with monitoring devices and temperature control. Thomas sat in the passenger seat, the sudden exhaustion of his 72 years settling deep in his bones. The transition from the harsh concrete to the soft upholstery felt like stepping into another world, a world where quiet dedication was finally seen, finally understood. At the modern veterinary clinic, 15 minutes away, the attending veterinarian confirmed the unspoken truth. Without that precise wrap and compression, the vet stated, studying the puppy's chart, this puppy wouldn't have made it another hour. The blood loss would have been fatal. Whoever stabilized this animal knew trauma management. News of the incident spread with viral efficiency. A photo, captured by an anonymous passerby, showed Thomas kneeling by the ditch, his silver hair catching the light as he bent over the injured creature. The caption simply read, "The world looked away. One man didn't." Donations poured in for the puppy's extensive care, now named Lucky by the clinic staff. Local news stations requested interviews with Thomas, who reluctantly agreed to one brief segment. "I just did what I was trained to do," he said, shifting uncomfortably under the camera's focus. Any medic would have done the same. 3 days later, the manager of Walker's Market posted a public apology on social media after significant community backlash and calls for boycott. The post seemed more concerned with damage control than genuine remorse. Thomas, however, cared not for hollow apologies or belated recognition. He cared only that Lucky, now on the mend, wagged its bandaged tail weakly when he entered the recovery room. The young soldier, who had first recognized Thomas's medical technique, visited the clinic again, this time with a group of Medical Corps cadets from the nearby base. "Sir," he began, addressing Thomas with a deep respect, "we would be deeply honored if you would consider speaking to our unit about field medicine and about what it means to never leave anyone behind." Thomas stood before them in the clinic's conference room, holding Lucky carefully in his arms while the puppy licked his chin. His voice, though soft with age, carried the unmistakable weight of lived experience. Compassion doesn't retire, ever. The day you walk past suffering because it's inconvenient is the day you've forgotten why you wear that uniform. Every cadet in the room straightened imperceptibly, something profound and unspoken passing between generations of healers. 4 weeks later, Thomas and Lucky became familiar figures at the local park. The silver-haired man walked slowly, a small dog with a distinctive scar along its flank, now bounding with energy beside him. Children ran to pet the once-abandoned puppy. Parents greeted Thomas with respectful nods and warm smiles, some quietly thanking him for showing our kids what matters. Near the drainage ditch where it all began, someone had planted a small handmade sign, laminated against the elements. "Kindness lives here. One man, one dog, one decision," that reminded us who we should be. One crisp autumn afternoon, the young soldier returned, holding a carefully folded American flag in white-gloved hands. "Sir, we discovered you never received your formal retirement ceremony. The paperwork was misplaced after 40 years of service to this country. That oversight ends today." Thomas's weathered eyes welled up unexpectedly. Didn't think anyone remembered anymore. The soldier presented him the flag with formal precision. "We remember, sir. We always will." That day, dozens of people, veterans, active duty personnel, and civilians alike, stood in respectful silence as Thomas, with Lucky sitting proudly at his feet, finally received long overdue recognition. No elaborate podium, no lengthy speeches, just a quiet gathering of hands pressed over hearts, and one old medic holding a value that once had no name, no future, no hope, now carried the weight of a community's rediscovered love.